Yo, what's going on, YouTube? Alright, so I think I've decided that I'm gonna start by setting up the JWT service class so that we can get it up and running so that we are able to issue tokens. And then if the video doesn't take too long, we're gonna probably work with also setting up the filter chain or the JWT filter chain, and then also completing our what you call it, our security filter chain method over here. I don't want it to take too long, so hopefully if we do all of that within this video, within the next video, we can then focus on setting up how to log in and stuff. The registration part, we can do that after because it's not that complicated. It's pretty much simple, but I think let's get the difficult stuff out of the way first. Alright, so firstly we need to add the dependencies within our pom.xml here. Now I'm gonna paste this in, and like I said, it's been a while since I did this project, so hopefully these ones are still relevant. So just a second there. So right after there, Spring Security Testing there, I'm gonna paste my our JWT what you call it, dependencies. So we need all three of them in order for our us to be able to successfully issue JWT tokens, create and issue them and stuff. So pause the video and copy all of these, and then after that just refresh the Maven repository or dependencies, and then let Maven just download all of the dependencies required and then take it from there. Mine might take a while, so I'm just gonna pause the video while it does that, and then we'll continue afterwards. One moment for me, please. Okay, I think mine might be done. Didn't take that long, but so far it seems like there are no errors. So with that being said, let's continue with creating the JWT class. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know all the classes that are or all the methods that are gonna be all the methods that you're gonna see, so that's why I'm copying and pasting them. And then let's see, so I'm gonna have to come within the config class, or do I? Actually no, I have to go into the service class. Alright, so let me first create a package. By the way, I just recently bought a new laptop. I mean, sorry, not a laptop, a keyboard. So hopefully it's not that noisy. Okay. So within here, we're gonna create a class. So we're gonna say JWT token service. All right. Okay. So like I said, I'm gonna copy all of the files. I mean, sorry, all of the methods that we're gonna use, and then we can just step through them one by one. Right. 1 second. Okay. So the secret key, we'll talk about that shortly. For now, let's leave that. Alright, so I'd say just copy everything as it is, you see here, or as you see here. We're gonna have to create a current time. This is going to be used when we validate to see if the token is still valid, and then obviously we're gonna set an expiration for the token. We can't have a token existing within the system for too long. So again, this is the method, or this is the object that we're gonna use to set up our expiration time. So again, just copy it as it is, and then now here we have a method where we extract the token, or basically where we extract the username from the token. Again, just copy it as it is. Now I'll point out that within the repository for the original project, you will find these exact same methods within that project. So I'll leave again. I will definitely leave a link within the description below, so you'll be able to download all of these, or you'll have this class available within that project. All right, so here we're gonna this is the method that we're gonna use to extract the username. Okay, it's gonna take let me just do this. So it's gonna take, obviously it's gonna use the extract claim. So now one thing I need to point out is that all these methods that are in here, some of them are being used within the method itself, and then some of them are going to be used with some are being used within the class itself, and then some are going to be used outside of the class. So basically, when we create another class where we have to extract the username, this is the class we're going to call. But then this one over here, extract claim, I believe, let me see, I think it might be this one. So but all of these methods that you see within here are required in order for us to work with this service class. Alright, so this one is going to extract the token, and then also claims objects are going to be in there, and then extract expiration. Again, I don't think we will use this one, but it's going to be there. What else? Okay, so this is the one that you see up here, extract claim, and then extract all claims. Don't think we're going to use this one, but it is required within this particular class of ours. And then here we're gonna get the signed key. So obviously this is using the secret key that we have up here. Like I said, we will explain that a bit later. And then what else? And then here we're checking to see if the token is expired or not. So as you can see, we're using this particular method here to see if the token is still valid or not. And then what else? So this one is the class we're going to use to generate the token, and then from here on also, yeah, so basically this particular method over here is being called, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, this is the method over here that's being called within this generate token class, method. And then obviously here we're just validating the token itself. Okay, I hope I wasn't too fast. Like I said, I don't know all these methods off by heart. I just basically looked at the repository to see what was being used to generate tokens and to sign them, and then to validate them, etc. So again, this will be available within the Git repository or GitHub repository. But yeah, I just wanted to show you what the class basically contains. Now all I did here to sign this secret key, or basically this is using a hash algorithm. All I did, I'll show you now, I just basically went let's see, I don't know if I remember the site. Let me see if okay, no, I don't know if I still remember it. I'll try and figure it out, and then I'll leave the site. I'll leave a link to the site within the description below. But basically all I did was just take a tool, and then all I did was just add a value like my secret key, and then all I did was just encode it online, and then obviously you choose, if I'm not mistaken, I think I chose something similar to this. Alright, I'll find the original site that I found, and then from there on, the original site that I used to hash my my string value to whatever, and then obviously it generated this this secret key over here. Now I think this is important. I'll leave the original link, but it's important because the decoder here needs to have the correct one, otherwise the hashing is gonna fail, if I'm not mistaken. So but then don't worry, I will find the link to the site, and then if I'm not mistaken, it was a SHA-256. Yeah, something like that. So that's what I used. I used an online one to hash my string value, just to create a secret key. But you don't have to use that. You can just use the one that I have here within the class, and then yeah, that's basically the one that we're gonna use over here. So don't stress about trying to find that site, but I will find the link and then put it within the description. So this is the class that we're gonna use. And then another thing, we need to annotate this. uh, all right, so that's basically it. I hope I wasn't too fast. Again, just pause the video and see which methods. Just copy the methods as they are. Just pause the video as we went down, and then just make sure that everything is in order. Otherwise, just download just get the code from the Git repository, and then just copy it from there. All right, so that's it for the JWT token service class. Now the next thing is to create a filter. Now the filter basically is that's what we're gonna use to make sure that the token that the user is providing gets basically validated through that filter, and then what we're gonna do from there is that add that filter within our security filter class chain here. I mean security filter chain method over here, so that if the user wants to proceed with creating CRUD operations, they can be checked whether or not they're validated or not. Alright, so let me see. So I have to come in here, then I'm going to create a package. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to put it outside of the security config folder. So we're going to come within the config folder, create this particular filter folder here, and then we're going to create a class in here. So I'm going to call this JWT auth. Just to keep it short, I'm going to say auth filter. Now in the original project, I think I named it authentication filter, but it's pretty much the same thing. The name doesn't actually matter. Alright, so okay. So here we have to annotate it as a component. What the hell? Okay, let me just fix this. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is auto wire that service class we just created. Okay, and then here I'm going to say add auto. Now don't stress about this for now, I will explain later. I'm just adding it now so that I don't forget it. Okay, I'm gonna comment it out for now. Like I said, I'll explain later. Okay, so now in here we need to create a method called the doFilter internal. But the first thing we need to do is extend the once per filter, once per request filter. And then in here, obviously, we have to implement the methods. All right. Right. So by the way, you don't have to type out these comments like I did, but I just do it just to always remind myself what I'm doing. Right, so we're gonna say did I spell that right? Authorization. Right, just to explain, so from the mobile app, remember, we're gonna send the token through to this particular API, or this whole API application that we're building. And then obviously when the token is being sent, it is going to be sent through a header, or a request header, and that request header is going to have this name, authorization. So again, when we get to the part where we build the mobile app, you will see this. Right, so now we're going to say for now we're just going to leave it now. Okay, so from here, what do we need to do? We're gonna say let me actually call this an if. I need to copy this again because I need to see where it ends as well. Okay, so now here we're gonna check to see if the authorization header, which is this one over here, if it is empty or null. So we're gonna say actually I'm mistaken. I need to check if it's not null. What am I doing? Okay. Apologies for that lapse in concentration. So we need to see. So remember, when the authorization header is being sent, the value that it's going to contain is going to be bearer and then plus whatever the token is. So here we're going to need to check to see if it's not null. Actually, sorry, if it is null and if it doesn't start with, okay, so which we're going to say bearer, and then it has to have space. Okay, so we check to see if it's null or if it doesn't start with that. That's the value that's going to be contained with this authorization header. You will get to see that when we get to the part where we build the mobile app. Alright, so now what we need to do is filter chain dot do filter, and then we just pass in the request and response. And then we can just return here. Okay, so now we need to move to the next step. Alright, so when we send the the bearer token, so remember it has to start with bearer and then there's going to be a space and then plus whatever the token is from there. So on this part over here, we're getting the substring, which is the token value, but after the 7th place. So it's like 1 2 3 4 5 6 and then 7. So remember, the space within a string counts for something, so that's the value we're gonna get there, and then we're gonna set it through to this token value that we basically initiated up here, and then from there we're gonna need to so here we're gonna extract the username from the token itself. So we're gonna say user email. So obviously when we log into the app, we're gonna use email address. So that's why I just named it as user email up here. Alright, so we're gonna say equal to JWT token service, right, dot extract username. So then here we pass in that JWT token, of which that's what we're setting up here. So remember, we're retrieving it from the authorization header, and then we're just checking to see if it's null, and then obviously we're taking that value which is going to come after the 7th place of this, which is going to start from like I said, from the 7th position of the string. And then once we get that value, we set it up here. So we extract the token, the username from the token, which is this method that we created, or which is this method over here. Alright, so let me just close this index and then the pom.xml file. What else do we need? We don't need this. Alright, so let's go back here to the filter class. Alright, so this needs to be up here. Okay, so from this point we're gonna say alright, so here we're gonna check to see if this value is not null, or this user email is not null. So we're gonna say user email So now we're going to call a particular object to check the security context holder. So like I said, in Spring Security, they don't actually store the user within a session, but it gets stored within a context holder, or a security context holder, which is some level of a thread, or some sort of a thread, where when the user logs in, it gets stored within a thread, and then Spring Security basically checks within that thread. Now again, if you don't know anything about Spring Security, do not stress about that. I'm going to leave links within the video, within the description below, as to where you can learn about Spring Security and how it actually works. I'm not really that familiar or that good with it. I'm also learning myself, but I think that when we do this kind of projects, it helps to get a better understanding of how the ecosystem of Spring Security works. So yeah, so don't stress about it. I will leave a link in the description below. So security um, context holder, right? And then we're gonna say dot get context, and then from here we're gonna say dot get authentication, and then we're gonna check if that is not null. Is that correct? Okay, let me also copy this so that I'm well aware of where I am within the code. Okay, so now we're gonna say, again, this is another object within Spring Security, so do not, oh yeah or no, yeah. Alright, so this object over here. So remember in the previous video when I showed you how Spring Security works. So this user object comes by default with Spring Security. So the username that that comes by default with Spring Security, it's basically set within this within this object over here. And then obviously the password is generated on the fly when you run the application. So um I'm going to show you probably if not in this video, in the next video, as to how we can create our custom user details object, so that we are able to authenticate ourselves using whatever is stored within a database and not what Spring Security gives us. So I'm gonna click this, gonna equal to, so basically this is gonna be this up here. Okay, alright, I think basically let me just stop it here. Right, so before we continue with this part here, I don't think this is gonna work unless we actually set up this my custom user details service class. So let's start with that, because we're gonna need it in any case to continue with what we're doing here. So within the services here, I'm gonna create a package here. So basically I just want to separate this from the other classes, or the service classes. So I'm gonna call this auth. Alright, so now we're gonna need a couple of classes within here. So the first one we're gonna create is what's this name here? My custom user details service. then I'm going to name it that. Alright, so within this class, I'm going to annotate this as a service, and then this is going to extend not extend, implements user okay, and then we're going to implement certain methods in here. Alright, so alright, so just to explain, so basically we're going to authenticate using a user that's going to be stored within a database. This class is going to help us do that, but then we need to load that user within a user details object. So now what we're going to do within here is create a demo user. Oh, sorry, we're going to create our own, what you call it, user details class. So for now, let's do this, import class, so that the error goes away. So now that's another class that we need to create. So first let's do that. Let's create that class within here as well. My custom is that correct? Let me just check. Okay, so now let me get in here. So now this implements user details. Again, same within this class, we're gonna need to implement some methods. So first let me do this. My okay, so here's what's gonna happen. This class contains certain methods, which is the ones that we've just pulled in over here. Now this is the class that Spring Security is going to expect. So within this class we can control what gets returned, right? So now we need to set this to true, otherwise we're gonna have some issues. Also true. Is credentials non-expired, we're gonna say true as well. Is account not logged, we're gonna say true as well. Is account non-expired, we're gonna say true, right? So in this class we're gonna control what details are being returned. So do not confuse it with the my custom details service. That's not the same thing. My custom user details is what contains the user's credentials. Again, you will get to see this in full context probably within the next video, but within this class we're going to control what the user gets, what gets returned and stuff like that. Now here, when we create our repository class, this is where we're going to check to see if the information that the user has provided, does it exist within the database. Otherwise, if it doesn't, it's going to return null, right? So therefore, first thing I want to do is, let's see, do we have models? We don't have models within here. Let me just create a package over here. So for now I'll just say string apologies, it's actually supposed to be an integer. Right, so this is gonna get confusing, so let me start again. So this my custom user details class, this implements the user details class object or object, which contains all of these methods. These methods, and we're gonna create other ones within here that's gonna allow us to control what user information is getting sent back. Let's say, for example, when the user logs in, um, this is the class. Basically, we're gonna take the username and password, and then this is where the username and password is gonna get checked to see if it's correct. It's what matches in the database, and then from there on, what we're gonna do is is that even within here we're gonna control how we're gonna send information back. So for example, for now I'm gonna create a constructor, right? My custom user details, and then from here this is gonna return the user object that we just created, or model that we just created. We're gonna name it user. Alright, and then within here okay, and then we're gonna just say this dot user is equal to user. So when this class my custom user details, when this gets instantiated basically within here, we're gonna load that object, this object, with whatever the details are. That's if the user gets authenticated, right? Then within here, when we return the password, we're gonna say, okay, so obviously we're gonna have to add that within within our object here. So let's quickly set that up. So we're gonna need the user ID, which is gonna be an integer. We're gonna say private, which is gonna be so this one will be last name, and then this will be password. And then obviously we're gonna load private local and then obviously within here we're gonna set up the getters and setters. By the way, I pressed Alt and insert, or the simplest way to do this is to just right click and then say generate, right, and then just say getters and setters over here, and then select each and every one of them. Okay, so obviously this is going to be an entity class, right? So we have to annotate that as an entity. So the name of the table that we're going to be looking into is users. Now it's also important that you do this, otherwise when you run the application, what Spring is going to do is, if you don't have this, Spring will basically create the create the table within the database using whatever objects that you created within here. So to control that, so that Spring doesn't do that, you have to name this as this, because remember we're going to be creating the database ourselves. It's fairly simple. It's just the users tables and the nodes table. So yeah, all right, so I think we're done basically with the actually we're not. I need to annotate. we need to annotate this user ID as the we need to use it because this is going to be the unique ID that we use to identify the users. So we can close this now. So now that we have our user object set up here, when we return the password, we're going to say user dot get password, and then in here we can just say user dot, actually we forgot one thing. Apologies for that. Right, and then obviously we have to set up the getter and setter for that particular property. Okay, that should be there. Then in our custom user details, we're gonna say get email. Alright, so don't stress about this for now. You will get to see we're gonna create some custom classes within here. Sorry, not custom classes, custom methods, where we get the first name, email, and last name, etc., and the ID as well. So for now, let's come back to the custom user details service. Again, don't confuse it with the custom user details service. There's two differences there. There's a difference between the two. Okay, so we now need to create the repository. So we're going to create a package within here. So we're going to say user and then this is going to be an interface, and then we're going to say extends CRUD repository, and then obviously we're going to get the user object, again the one from our model, and then we're going to say integer, and then we're going to mark this as a repository. Okay, so within here we're going to create a method. We're going to say user, right? One second. Just want to be sure. Yeah. So we're going to say get user by email, and then we're going to close the brackets there, and then add param, and then obviously we're going to get the user by email, which is going to be a string and then email. Now we're going to say add query. So now I'm going to make it a custom query where we actually write the select statement as is, and not let Springboot or the JPA API handle all of that in the background. So what we need to then do here, we're going to say value, right? Then we're going to say select all from users where email equals, then we're going to put a placeholder here. We're going to say email. So remember, this email here and the one here within the param, it needs to be the same, otherwise this is going to throw an error. And so this is kind of basically like a normal select statement from when, like how you write it within a SQL database. So therefore we must make sure we say native query and say true. All right, so since we have this, now let's create a class within here called user service. Okay, this is also going to be a service. Okay, so we're going to practically do something similar. So we're going to say public user. This is returning a user object, so we're going to say get user by email, right? This remember, it must be the one from our models. Okay, so up here we're gonna say at auto wired, and then we're gonna say private user okay. Then obviously this is gonna take in a string, which is gonna be user, or rather email, and then in here we're gonna say return user repository dot get user by email, right? And then obviously we pass in our email here. Okay, now since we have this, we can come back to, let's close the user repository, let's close the user object. Now in here we need to then call in that service. We're gonna say okay. Alright, so now what we then have to do is say user. We're gonna call in the user model, and then let's pull that in. Then this is gonna equal to user service dot get user by email. Now Spring automatically will pass this in. We can change this to email if you want to, so that it doesn't confuse us. And then we're gonna say email. So when we log in, Spring will basically put the whatever the username email that the user has put input within the login form, and it'll assign it to this variable or to this object, and then basically that's what we're retrieving here. This is what we're gonna get, but we will get to that. For now, let's not stress about that. We're just gonna rename it to email so that we pass it in here. So now let's continue. Let's just say okay. So now we're gonna say throw username not found exception, and then here we will just name it unable to load user. That needs to be a string. Okay, so basically the username is gonna, with whatever the user passed in, we're gonna basically set that to we're gonna set this user object to So basically this is going to run a query within the database to check and see if this email exists. If it does, then it's going to load it within this user object. Here we're just checking to see if it's not null. If it is null, it'll throw this exception. Otherwise, if it is null, it'll throw this exception. Otherwise, if it's not, we're gonna then load this user object onto our my custom user details class, which is this over here. So now remember, this is expecting a user details class, so therefore we can now continue to say new right, and then we pass in that object. So remember, within our constructor here, we are expecting this user object, so that's what we're setting. And now because we've done that, now we have access to the objects that are within our user details, our user model class. So that's why here we are then able to set our password. Okay, let me put it like this. The user puts in his email and whatnot. We then try to retrieve the user information within the database using that email. If it's not null, if it is null, it'll throw an exception. Otherwise, if it's not, it will load that user's information and then it's going to store it within this my custom user details class. Within here, then Spring will be able to take whatever we've set within this object, right, assign it to this one within our local my custom user details class, and then from there on we then return the password and the username the email. From there on, Spring will then validate this information, and then if the user has provided the correct information, it'll let us go through. Otherwise, if it doesn't, it won't. Otherwise, if you passed in the incorrect details, it won't. So now that we've done this, let's now continue with our JWT filter class. So let's come back here and then continue with that. 1 second. Okay, so remember, now we have to say user details. This will equal to my custom user details service. What am I doing? Right, and then we're gonna say dot load username, load user by username. Then here we're gonna pass in the user email. Okay, and then here we're gonna validate. Okay, so right, and then we're gonna say JWT token, and then from here we're gonna also pass in the user details. Now it's taking this object here because within our JWT token, if I'm not mistaken, down here at the bottom it takes the token and the user details, and then from there on it takes we're gonna assign the usernames, the username property here from whatever is extracted from the token, and then it's gonna return it's gonna come here and then return to see if whatever is stored within the user details dot get username, and if it's gonna check basically to see if the user details and the token do match. If they do match, then obviously it'll return true. It'll pass. We will be then able to pass through from here. So okay, now we need the username. Username, password, token, and then from there we're gonna say user. I'm just gonna type out the name, otherwise it's gonna give us a long name. Then we're gonna say equals to new and then here we're gonna say user details, and then it's gonna be null, then alright, so let me put this on a new line so that you can see. Right, now from here what we need to do is we're gonna say set details, and then I need to copy that, put that there. Alright, let's see, from here what do we need to do? We need to come out of this if block. Probably should name it that, if alright, so alright, so okay, so again, do not stress about this. Even I'm not I haven't memorized any of this. I'm just looking at my notes and setting this up, but this is what we need to filter through whatever token the user has passed through the request header. Now I'm going to leave a link in the description below that specifically deals with all of this, so that you may get an understanding of why it's being done this way. Again, I'll also leave us a link in a video or in the description below that explains the custom user details service, and then the custom user details object as well. I think I should put this within the auth folder. I'm gonna refactor that. Hopefully it doesn't break anything. So I will leave it separate videos within the description below that explains this whole JWT filtered authentication stuff, so that you can understand why it's being done this way. And then I'll leave a link in the description specifically to show you how Spring Security authenticates and why you would need to create these three classes that we just did here. I'm gonna need to do this because I'm pretty much aware that I probably didn't do a good job explaining what we were doing, all that we were doing within this video. So yeah, alright, so let me see from here on. What we need to do is, let's see, internal method. Right before the internal method here, we're gonna alright, so we're gonna say filter chain dot do filter, and then request response. All right, so that's basically it for this class. All right, and then like I said, I'll definitely make sure that I leave a link in the description that explains all of this. I'm still yet to understand everything that goes on here. I'm gonna hope to do more projects where we work with this so that I get an understanding as well as to how all of this works, or how is it tied in together. So far I only understand this part when it comes to Spring Security. These three classes, I've seen it quite a number of times as to how people have to authenticate within Spring Security. But this is for when you're building a normal application where it doesn't work with APIs and stuff. So again, like I said, I'm pretty much aware that I didn't do a good job with explaining everything that goes on here. Apologies for that, but just pause through the video, copy everything that I did as is, and then watch the videos that I'm talking about in terms of or so that you can get more understanding of why all of this is needed. Alright, so I think I should end it here. This video is probably long enough. um, I think within the next video we're gonna be looking at continuing with with this setup so that we can start working with authentication within the application. I think once we get through this, once we're done with all of this, everything should be easy from there. We're gonna use Postman to test to see if we're getting the right stuff, if all of this is working, and then if everything is working as is, then we can move on towards designing the mobile app. But yeah, I think if we can just get through the authentication part and all of this, because I think this is the most difficult part, and then yeah, we can then move on to building the mobile app. All right, guys. Again, for those of you who stuck through until the end, again, I thank you for watching. And then, if you've liked what you've seen so far, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And then I'll see you guys within the next video. Again, thanks for now, and thanks again, and cheers for now.